When I was a teenager, I was living with my mom and my little sister. She had me when she was really young, and my dad didn't stick around after that, so it was just us, which made me want to find a way to show how much we cared, as Mother's Day was coming up. The only problem was, I didn't have any money, so I couldn't exactly take her out for a nice lunch or anything like that. All I could think to do was spend the day at a spot where the three of us could have fun together. It was the San Joaquin River, which is close to where we live in Central California. I learned there was a popular swimming area that only the locals really knew about. So, a few days before Mother's Day, we piled into the car and drove out to the river, planning on having a nice family day of swimming and sunbathing. When we got there, I was expecting to see a lot of other people, but it was actually pretty empty. I thought it was weird since it was so close to a holiday, but we had a large area of the river to ourselves, so it turned out to be a good thing. We all got changed. Then my mom set up a chair to lounge on the riverbank while my sister and I got in to swim. We were having a blast, splashing each other, racing, seeing who could hold their breath underwater the longest, stuff like that. Eventually, I needed a break, so I started swimming back to the shore. My sister didn't come with me though. She somehow still had energy to keep going while I was exhausted. While I was climbing the rocks, getting up to shore, I could see my mom sunbathing and basically passed out on her lawn chair. It seemed like she was relaxed and asleep. When I finally climbed up to the shore, I went to dry myself off with the towel. I was there for a few minutes when I heard something unusual. It took me a second to realize that I was hearing my little sister screaming for help. I stood up and saw her in the middle of the river, way farther downstream than earlier. The river had suddenly swelled up, and the current was racing now. She wasn't strong enough to fight it. I knew I should have gotten off that rock immediately and gone to help her, but I just froze. I saw my mother sprint by in a blur, but I didn't follow her. I just watched and did nothing. My mother caught up to my sister on the riverbank, then jumped into the water after her. She swam so fast and was at my sister within seconds. Holding on to her and trying to keep her head above the water, she was able to, but I could tell she was struggling as my sister was panicking, and I was still 100 feet away when I saw them slowly heading toward the shore. I finally kicked myself into action. I ran as fast as I could to reach them, but they were nearly at the shore when I caught up, so I jumped into the shallow edge, holding my hands out to help them out of the river. They reached me in a few seconds, and my mother pushed my sister up out of the water.
Take her! Take her!
I got her! You're okay now.
I grabbed her and carried her over to the land, but when I turned back, my mother wasn't behind me.
Help! Help! Help me!
The current had quickened again in a flash and dragged her out of the shallows and back into the river. I jumped in after her, swimming as fast as I could, but no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't catch up. The river was thrashing me around, and I knew my mother had to already be exhausted. The current had also picked up a ton of dirt, making it impossible to see through the water, so before I knew it, I couldn't even find her. Then, I realized I was in danger. I kept getting dragged under as I was trying to catch my breath, and ended up swallowing water, almost inhaling it all into my lungs. My instincts took over, and I started swimming to shore instead of towards my mother. I was barely able to get out, but I managed to get to safety. Collapsing in the dirt, I dragged myself up and went back to my sister. We caught our breath and looked out over the water, but there was no sign of our mother. When we weren't grasping for air anymore, we were sobbing. Help came soon after, but by then, she was long gone. It started pouring rain as they started the search party, making it even more difficult to find her. They had to call off the search that night. It took until the afternoon of the next day until she was found, but it was far too late. Since then, nothing has ever been the same for me and my sister. We're living with our relatives now, but we can never sleep like we used to. I wish I'd never even mentioned that river. It should have been me who jumped into the water to save my sister. This story was inspired by a horrific Mother's Day incident. On May 9th, a mother named Brenda Duran jumped into the San Joaquin River in Central California to rescue her drowning daughter. The mom watched her children playing in the water of a popular beach, but when her daughter could not keep her head above water, Duran rushed into the river trying to save her, but struggled to stay afloat due to the river's current swallowing the mom. Her son then saw his mom in trouble and jumped back into the river to try to grab her, but he unfortunately could not get to her in time. First responders, including rescue dive teams, spent hours in the water, but visibility and safety concerns forced the search to be paused around 11 p.m., police said. Duran's remains were recovered around 5:30 p.m. on May 11th. The river the incident took place in is known for its teeming wildlife, economy-fueled tourism that includes paddling, swimming, and fishing, and hydroelectric power. Duran was just 30 years old. I was a delivery driver for Jollibee. Here in the Philippines, where it was first founded, Jollibee is super popular, so I was always going back and forth on my motorbike. I loved to work the overnight shift because it had the least traffic, though it could be dangerous for other reasons. The best part of the job, though, was by far the access to free fried chicken to take home. Unfortunately, the reality of constantly driving for work is that you're bound to make mistakes eventually. One night, I was returning home from a delivery to a sketchier side of town, so I was going a bit faster than usual to get out of there. But then I slipped up for just a second and cut someone off. It was 3 guys on one bike, and I pulled out right in front of them, almost causing an accident. We all hit the brakes and skidded to a stop just inches from each other. Nothing got hit, but they were on a really nice bike, so they were still pissed. They looked like they were definitely a bunch of thugs in the middle of doing something illegal, so I knew they were going to blow the whole thing out of proportion. However, I could not have expected just how quickly the altercation spiraled out of control. "Hey puta, are you trying to kill us?" No, I'm sorry. I just didn't see you. It's been a long night, you know. "You're lying. You almost sent us flying, fool." "It was a mistake, okay? Calm down. You little bitch. I'm gonna make you bite the curb." Suddenly, the guy lunged off his bike and came straight at me, but I was able to drive off just in time. They started chasing me down, so I tried to cut corners fast and lose them, yet they were still on me the whole time. Even with 3 people on it, their bike was way more powerful than mine, so I didn't stand a chance of escaping them. They followed me all the way back to Jollibee, where I had just enough space to run inside and lock the doors. My coworker asked me what I was doing, but I told her to get the owner. They both came out right as the guys on the bike showed up and started banging on the glass. My boss asked me why I locked out the customers, and I explained that they were only here for me. They started shouting that they were going to kill me. I didn't have to do any more convincing. My boss told me to go upstairs while he and my coworker went out to calm them down. I watched the entire interaction from the 2nd floor window. The longer it went on, the more I realized I screwed up. These guys weren't your average road ragers. They were violent criminals, hopped up on their own supply, just waiting for a target, and I gave them one. Within a few seconds of them talking, one of them shoved my coworker in the face, causing her to drop to the ground. She crawled away while those animals spat on her. Then all 3 of them turned their attention to my boss. He tried backing away, but he was quickly surrounded. They kept pushing him, trying to egg him on into defending himself. He was smart about it though, and kept his hands up without throwing any punches, no matter how many times they hit him. Sadly, what they were saying was as bad as what they were doing, maybe even worse. They started out by saying they just wanted me to come outside, but as things got more heated, they were threatening to kidnap my coworker and burn the place down. Then it devolved into them saying they would just take everyone out. I wanted to call the police, but my phone was still mounted on my bike, so there was no way I could get to it. Finally, I decided to man up. I didn't want anyone else to get hurt or taken out. What had happened was already bad enough. I was ready to go down and deal with them myself, no matter what they wanted to do. It was better than letting them go any further with my coworker, who was still out there and completely vulnerable. When I went downstairs, they were all still distracted by my boss. They didn't even see me through the glass. I hesitated, watching them from inside for a few more seconds, until I finally pulled myself together. I finally walked outside. Then everyone stopped. I had my hands up, and I was apologizing as quickly and genuinely as possible. I went over to them, standing away from the store so I could get them to leave the others alone. They came at me slowly, like they were deciding the best way to make me suffer. I was still praying to God in my head when the closest one of them, standing about 6 feet away from me, pulled something out of his waistband. I only had an instant to recognize that. I was looking down at the steel barrel before. Kuya! What the hell? Why did you do that? Shit, it was an accident. Hello? Please hurry. I don't know if he's gonna make it. He's calling the police. Kill him too. Screw that. It's too late. Let's get the hell out of here. Well, come on then. Let's go. It was 3 men on a motorcycle. I think it was green. I'm not sure. They had tattoos, short hair, about 5'8", muscular build. They just took him out and drove off. This story was inspired by a disturbing Jollibee's incident that happened in the Philippines. A man has been arrested for taking out a fast food delivery driver following a traffic altercation early Sunday. Albert Budlat, 22, resident of Malate, Manila, and employed at the Jollibee Philippine General Hospital Taft branch, passed away after 3 men went after Budlat inside the store in Manila and took him out with a firearm. Police have arrested a suspect identified as Jason Ignacio, 28. The victim had just gone out of the store to make a delivery around 3 a.m. when 3 men riding on one motorcycle cut him off in a counterflow, which resulted in an argument. Budlat went back to the store, but was followed by the men later identified as Ignacio, Raymond Yap, and Rolando Elizalde. Efren Bales, the store security guard, said he heard a commotion on the ground floor while he was patrolling the 2nd floor. He went down to pacify the group, but the 3 men started making threats with their firearm, getting physical with the store shift manager, while swearing and demanding that they bring out the rider. When Budlat eventually came out, the men started jumping him while also shouting expletives, and then ultimately doing what they did. The 3 then immediately fled using their motorcycle. Budlat was rushed to the nearby hospital, but didn't make it. The incident led to the arrest of Ignacio, while the other 2 suspects remain at large.
After I divorced my first wife, I met my current wife, Hope, in my 30s. We both already had children, so I knew she would be an excellent mother to my kids. I ended up adopting all her children as well, and then we even had our own son together. That all started when we were both still very young. But now, 4 decades have passed, all our kids have moved away, and as we've gotten older, I've been burdened with declining health. I'm always sick and can't move around for shit. However, in what was clearly the final years of my life, Hope has taken it upon herself to make me even more miserable. She started distancing herself from me, basically ignoring me, like I didn't exist. During minor holidays like Mother's Day, she would leave the house and disappear for hours. She admittedly said that she was having an affair, and that she would rather have me out of her life. The feeling was mutual, except I couldn't bring myself to divorce her after being with her for so long. So, I ended up complacent and let her do whatever she wanted. But recently, something has been horribly disturbing. I can tell Hope didn't want me alive. When I did simple things like sit around, watch TV, or eat, she would stare daggers at me from the corner. In fact, without any prompt or context whatsoever, she would say weird, disturbing shit like, "I wish for Mother's Day you would go away forever." She would then give me this evil smile, like she was already making the preparations. For a while, I've been sleeping on the couch in the living room. I never get any privacy, and I'm often afraid to fall asleep as I'll catch Hope staring at me in the darkness like an evil witch.
Go away! I'm trying to sleep! Get out of here!
I have sleeping pills, but I'm trying to avoid taking them because of her. I'm scared of not being alert to fend for myself, just in case she tried to pull something. When Mother's Day finally came, I expected Hope to be in a sour mood since I was still alive, but strangely, it was quite the opposite. She had this giddy energy about her all day. It was weird as hell. I just went about my day like usual, until it was finally time to get back on the couch and try to fall asleep. I didn't know I was in for the most terrifying night of my life.
Oh, God. She's watching me sleep again. She's so creepy. What the hell is the matter with her? If I pretend to be asleep, maybe she'll go away. No! Don't come near me, you freak! Leave me alone! Come on, just go away! What do you want? Oh, sweetie, it looks like you're having trouble sleeping again. Sit up for me so you can take your meds. I already took it. I'm fine. I said get up! Okay, fine. And here comes the airplane. Coming in for a landing. Here you are, my dear. That's it. Drink up. What are you doing? Just take the glass already. I'm tired. Whoa, what's
It was the night after Mother's Day. My mom called me, crying hysterically. She told me through her tears that my father had passed. I didn't know what to do, so I just went over to their house, finding it swarmed by police. I didn't understand why at first. All I wanted to do in that moment was comfort my mother, grieve with my family, and bury my father. Afterwards, I wanted to spend more time with my mom, and that's when I noticed her strange behavior. I asked her how it happened, but she just looked right through me and said she couldn't tell me. Something about it was just really off-putting. Weeks later, enough people started saying the same thing, that my mother was all but admitting to taking out her husband. Not a person who knew her hadn't had some weird encounter, with her basically admitting and saying what she did subliminally. Unfortunately, I had to agree with everyone. I had to send my own mother to prison.
For this Mother's Day, we had to feature one of the scariest mums to walk the face of the earth. The mum we are talking about is a 71-year-old woman named Hope Schreiner. Hope was married to her husband Robert for over 43 years. After making it past the 7-year itch, surviving the empty nest syndrome, and settling into retirement, it seemed as if the couple had a long-lasting, successful relationship. But their picture book story ended the day Hope snapped and bludgeoned Robert to his demise. Robert, who was hampered by mobility issues from a near-fatal car accident, battled numerous health problems in his 70s. He lost a lung to cancer and suffered chronic pneumonia and glaucoma. And it was during this period, Hope and Robert's relationship went downhill. Hope began an affair with another man named Donald Bure, 77. Hope dreamed of starting a new life with Bure, but he would ultimately turn her down. On the afternoon of the 2nd of June 2004, when Hope called 911 to say she had found her husband bleeding in their driveway, emergency responders arrived and declared Robert was a goner at the scene. The medical examiner determined blunt force trauma was the cause of his passing. It was also discovered that Robert had ingested a large dose of sleeping aid. In the days after her husband's passing, Hope began saying disturbing things to her family and friends. One friend expressed fear about the case being unsolved and that a killer was running around their rural community, but Hope whispered to her saying, "Don't worry, I did it." When Hope's daughter asked how her adopted father passed, Hope said, "I can't tell you." Hope also told a neighbor, "I just snapped. I put sleeping pills in his coffee." Another friend that volunteered with Hope at the library told investigators that Hope told her, "I wanted to get rid of my husband." Police later found evidence connecting to Robert's passing in Hope's basement. The day after Robert's funeral service, detectives arrested Hope and charged her accordingly. Hope was eventually sentenced to 17 years to life in prison, becoming Vermont's oldest female inmate. Years ago, I got a job working nights at Jollibee. The guy who trained me on everything turned out to be pretty cool, so we sort of became work friends over my first few days. Unfortunately, when I was done training, he went back to what he normally did most of the time, which was promotional work. He would always stand outside the store dressed up as the Jollibee mascot, dancing around and trying to attract more customers. Then one day, he randomly no-call, no-showed, and basically quit the job. I was annoyed because we never got the chance to hang out outside of work, and even trade social media. I figured he'd actually had it with the stupid mascot gig. I knew he'd been trying to get transferred back into the kitchen, but our boss said it was already to full staff capacity. Apparently, a talented mascot was crucial for business, and he was the only one who could do it right. I didn't care, except for the fact that I didn't have anyone cool to talk to at work anymore. Weeks passed, and during one shift, I needed to use the washroom. It was occupied every time I went to check. Weeks passed, and during one shift, I needed to use the washroom. It was occupied every time I went to check. I'd only been there a few weeks, so I didn't know every bit of the building. I was hoping there was a hidden employee washroom somewhere. I went farther back into the kitchen than I ever had, and discovered an unmarked door. It looked like it could have been a tiny toilet, so I opened it. Unfortunately for me, it was just stairs leading to a dark basement. I stood there for a few seconds, contemplating on going down there to find a washroom, until my boss came out of nowhere.
Hey, what the hell you doing? Is there a washroom down there? I need to take a piss. Hell no, boy, it's just extra stock, so it's off limits. What if
You're
I
not allowed to go down there!
Sorry about that. I shouldn't have yelled. No, it's okay. Sorry to bother you, sir. I'll just see if the washroom is available now.
I'd never seen my boss explode on anyone like that. I was a bit shocked, so I just tried to forget about it. I finally got to use the washroom. Then I went back to my shift. Of course, my curiosity about what was down there became a bigger problem every single day. One night, we were closing the store, and he left early for some reason he didn't tell us about, just letting one of the shift leads take care of stuff for the rest of the night. Once he was gone, I knew I had my chance. I found a moment to slip away to the hidden door. I quietly opened it, then shined my phone flashlight to see where I was going as I slowly made my way down the stairs. At the bottom, the level of darkness was almost suffocating. The light switch I found didn't turn anything on, leaving me with just the light I had from my phone, which only let me see a few feet in front of me. I kept going, expecting to find something. The more I looked, the more I saw of a bare concrete floor. Then, finally, I saw something. The Jollibee mascot. It was lying against the far opposite wall of the basement, and it seemed to be the only thing in there. Confused, I walked up close to it, crouching down for a better look. I shined my light at its face, through the black mesh of the eye, and right there, I saw something I'll never forget. While I was looking into the eye of the mascot, a human eye opened. It seemed like someone was actually in there, and it looked just like my friend. Suddenly, the mascot moved and tried to grab me. I jumped back and ran away. It started chasing me, but after about 10 feet, I heard a chain snap tight. I looked back and realized the thing was chained to the wall. I was freaked the hell out. I felt like I was in a horror flick seeing this Jollibee mascot lunging at me. All I remember was watching him scream under that mask as I stood there in sheer terror. I didn't know what to do, but a thought hit me like a ton of bricks. That this whole thing about my boss leaving me an opportunity to go down there was a trap. So I thought I had to leave as soon as possible. I went back up the stairs and did my best to act like nothing happened, to seem normal. I finished my shift, but I never once returned to that place. I moved as soon as possible. I was paranoid that my boss might come for me. I didn't want to take the risk that he was somehow going to find out that I went down to that forbidden basement. I ended up starting completely fresh in a new city to try and move on from this. But no matter what, I can never forget it. I've never told this story to anyone, not until now. Because of this viral image of the eye inside a Jollibee mascot. I swear it's my old friend from work. It's the exact same sight I saw that haunted me all those years ago. And now it's come back to remind me that I abandoned my friend to a fate worse than death. This story was inspired by a viral online image of a man's eye peering out from a Jollibee mascot costume of the Filipino fast food chain Jollibee's. We decided to turn it into a horror story, seeing as the image meme had gone viral because of the ambiguity and lack of explanation from the photograph. The blurred image inspired fan art from various VTubers, ex-users, and fans from all over the world. The image was allegedly posted by ex-user HTML_sushi. The photo was posted without a caption on January the 5th of 2025 and gathered over 405,000 likes in 3 days. As bizarre as the image looks, one can only assume it was a Jollibee mascot worker taking photos with customers based on the person in front of him.
My life is one marked by a long history of success. Ever since I was a tiny little crab, I've wanted one thing more than anything else: money. These days, I get to reap the rewards. I've cut my workforce down to just 2 employees, a stagnant squid and a naive sponge, who are both either too lazy or too stupid to figure out how badly I'm ripping them off. I boss them around all day while I relax in my office, counting all the money I've made by selling addictive junk food to schools of willingly ignorant fish. When I get home, my life is about the same. I take a load off on couch cushions stuffed full of cash. I bathe in pots of gold to make sure my shell glistens like a freshly minted coin. I decorate my house with money. I talk to the money. I watch TV with my money. No matter what I'm doing, my money is always with me. Although, despite how overwhelmingly wealthy I am, I'd be lying if I said I didn't often get the sense that my life is still missing something very important: companionship. Yes, it's true. Success can make a man quite lonely. I've had dates with women here and there, but nothing ever works out. And for reasons I legally can't explain, there just aren't as many lady crabs around for a sad, old man crab like me to pursue. Then I got a phone call. Out of the blue, the lovely widow Mrs. Puff was on the other end of the line, and she was asking me out on a date. Of course, I still remember how our last date went, what with her cleaning out my pockets at that uppity high-class restaurant. But I knew I couldn't let this opportunity go, so I agreed. My first thought to keep the spending under control was to offer up the Krusty Krab as the perfect spot for our date, but Mrs. Puff accused me of being cheap and lazy. I had to backpedal extensively, explaining that we wouldn't just be eating there like normal customers, but in a special after-hours dinner setting with table service and the entire restaurant to ourselves. Once I got off the phone, I got SpongeBob and Squidward on a 3-way call. SpongeBob agreed, but Squidward took some convincing. I had to offer him overtime. And after I got that all sorted, I put on my suit and went to the Krusty Krab. Squidward was just sitting his lazy keister at the register, but thankfully SpongeBob had already set the atmosphere, so all I had to do was sit at the table and wait for my date to arrive. And when she did, she was like a blimp on the horizon, growing bigger and more beautiful with every second. I knew the double doors were a good investment when she squeezed her brilliant, bulging body through them, making this BBW-loving sailor swoon. When she sat down, the reinforced chair I prepared for her buckled and struggled underneath her. Dear Neptune, I wanted to be that chair so bad. I was about to replace it right then and there, but then SpongeBob came up and made me remember my decorum.
Greetings, lady and gentlemen. Are you ready to place your orders?
What? Oh, right, yes. We would like 2 Krabby Patties, please.
Excellent choice, sir. I'll get the kitchen right on that.
Now wait a minute, boy. You haven't taken my order yet.
My apologies, madam. And for you?
I would like 100 Krabby Patties, please.
Of course, madam. 100 crab... What? 100 Krabby Patties? Mr. Krabs, there's not enough meat for that many patties!
Boy, I don't care what you have to do, but I better see 100 Krabby Patties in front of my beautiful, hungry date. You hear me?
Yes, sir!
Admittedly, things weren't going as well as I'd hoped. Then the food came out. I didn't know how SpongeBob did it, but he cooked up those patties like I'd never seen them. I wanted to take a moment to appreciate it, but Mrs. Puff dove straight in, devouring patty after patty. I was awestruck. Hi, little lady. You sure can put it away.
Uh-huh. You gonna eat those?
I guess not if you want them.
Thanks. You know, I'm still hungry.
Well, I'm sure we can. Ah! SpongeBob, help me! Attaboy, SpongeBob.
I guess I'm satisfied for now, but you won't get away alive next time.
I think we're safe now, Mr. Krabs. She's gone.
Aye, for now at least. Say, SpongeBob, I gotta know how you did it. How'd you make 100 Krabby Patties if there weren't enough meat?
I made Squidward help me at the grinder.
Yeah!
I was only 19, living in Manila, Philippines. I was a part-time student working at Jollibee's on the side, the night shift specifically. I worked as a cashier, sometimes cleaning, and even drive-through tasks were given to me when we were understaffed. Mostly though, I was up front taking orders, dealing with the late-night crowd. One night, there was this guy that walked in. He was a tall guy, wearing a suit. It wasn't a fancy suit either, just one of those cheap ones you would find at the flea market. He reminded me of the Subway guy from Squid Games, just gaunt, expressionless, and downright creepy. I figured he was just another tired worker, hungry for some chicken joy. Just when I was about to take his order, he said he was a food inspector and that he needed to check the quality of our chicken for a year. He then pulled out some paperwork, official looking stuff, and said he worked for the government and the Ministry Food of Safety. He then demanded a sample piece of chicken joy and would eat it quickly in front of me. It was weird, but I couldn't say no to a food inspector. After finishing it, he would say it met the quality standards and then would leave the restaurant. But that wasn't the last time I saw him. He started coming in every other day randomly, saying he needed to maintain the quality of the food. After serving him another sample, the guy would eat every piece of chicken down to the bone like some kind of fiend. And as the months passed, the number of chicken he ate increased significantly. It came to a point where my colleagues would warn me about the inspector whenever they would see him. However, on one night, things took a turn for the worst. We were running low on chicken, and so we had to tell every customer they had to order something else. And then when the inspector eventually came in, same as always, asking for his sample, I told him we didn't have any to give out since we were running short.
Look, I know it's your job to give us ratings, but there's another Jollibee in town you might want to check out.
It was like he wasn't paying attention. He just stood there soullessly staring at me. Then his eyes and head started to twitch, like some kind of cracked out psycho that just OD'd. The more I stared at him, the more I realized he wasn't looking at me. He was looking behind me, at the remaining chicken that we had in the kitchen. He started clawing at the surface of the counter, causing customers to leave the restaurant. He then said,
Excuses! You can't get rid of me that easy! I want my chicken!
That's when he hopped over the counter like a freaking animal and lunged at me. He started trying to gouge my eyes out. His hands were like a vice, gripping me so hard I couldn't escape. I was screaming for help, afraid the freak was going to permanently blind me. I was pinned to the ground, and his weight was too heavy to push off. I thought it was about over for me. The freak was going to rip my eyeballs out when my coworker from the back rushed to my aid and pulled the man off of me.
I need that chicken! I need meat in my mouth! Shove more Jollibees down my throat!
The man then ran to the back and grabbed whatever chicken that was left over and started stuffing his face. More of my coworkers rushed the guy and began forcibly holding him down, pinning him to the floor. All he did was snarl and chuckle like an unhinged maniac. as he was drooling all over the place, snot dripping down his nostrils while constantly demanding for more chicken.
Give me more of that juicy Jollibees! It shit tastes like crack! And when I say crack, I'm talking about my ex!
I called the cops while my hands were shaking so bad I could barely dial. My eyes were burning too, but I was happy the guy didn't blind me. They eventually arrived and took him away. But while they were bringing him in the car, his eyes remained fixated on me. He glared as he mouthed the words, "You'll pay for this." After the cops interrogated the man, it turned out that he wasn't a food inspector at all. He was a con artist who had been sneaking into our restaurant disguised as an inspector, just to get free chicken. I couldn't believe it. A whole year of this lunatic scamming us. According to the police reports, it was also revealed that Jollibee wasn't the only food establishment he was terrorizing. There were other fast food chains with similar reports talking about the same guy posing as an inspector. But the only difference was that none of the staff was attacked like I was. The man ended up getting some jail time for his attack on me, impersonation, and of course theft, for all the free food he got over the years from the multiple food establishments. And since that incident, I was always on the edge at work. Every time someone walked in through the door, especially when it was someone tall wearing a suit, I could see his face, reminding me of that horrific night. This story was inspired by a bizarre incident regarding a Filipino man who was recently arrested for eating Jollibee's fried chicken for a whole year, under the disguise of being sent by Jollibee headquarters to check on the quality of food served by the local franchise store. Reports have it that the Filipino man was having free fried chicken at the neighborhood Jollibee in Quezon City for almost a year now, telling employees that he was a Rappler food critic, monitoring quality changes in fast food chains' daily menu servings. Monitoring quality food changes, he was reported to the Philippines National Police after he suspiciously changed his usual order from Chicken Joy to burger steak. It's unclear if the man is currently serving jail time, but it's ironic knowing the guy gets to eat as much chicken or meat as he wants while in there.
At this point, all of Bikini Bottom knows I'll never be able to drive a boat to save my life. I failed boating school so many times I lost count. In spite of this, it has long been my life's mission to earn my driver's license. Once I can drive, I can finally drive to work instead of walking like a loser. I'll be able to drive myself all over Bikini Bottom whenever and wherever I want. I could get away from that jerk Squidward and that buffoon Patrick. Hell, if I can drive a boat, maybe a girl will actually go on a date with me, and I can finally get some clam in my life. Unfortunately, each time I fail boating school, that dream looks more and more like a fantasy. Don't get it twisted though. I don't dread going back to boating school every time because I'm afraid I'll fail. No, I'm terrified of the woman who runs it, Mrs. Puff. She was a nice lady when I first met her, but then I happened. Every single time Mrs. Puff gets in the boat with me to take the driving test, I end up crashing and sending her to the hospital. I must have put her through 100 serious wrecks. I'm a sponge. I can absorb the impact just fine, but Mrs. Puff, on the other hand, she has a tendency to blow up. I'm on my last chance to get my license this time. I'm gonna end her life if I crash again. I've noticed in class this time around that she looks like she's on the verge of having a total mental breakdown at all times. Knowing this is my last chance, I'm pulling out all the stops. I reached out to Mrs. Puff a few days before the test, asking her if there was anything I could do to improve my chances. Strangely, I didn't get the usual answer of, no, we already tried everything. Instead, she told me about some special new method where the test is taken at night. Mrs. Puff said it was easier and less overwhelming because there's less traffic at night. To be honest, I wasn't too sure about it. She told me to come really late at night when nobody else would be around. I knew it was sketchy, but I also had no choice. That wasn't my only plan to increase my odds of passing, though. It's been a long time since we tried it, but I also asked Patrick to help me again, doing the same plan with the hidden radio and the binoculars like last time. On the day of the test, my nerves were out of control. I had to go to work at the Krusty Krab first, and for all of those 12 hours on the job, I couldn't stop thinking about the test. When I finally got home, I had to cancel jellyfishing with Patrick to practice our plan. We worked on it for hours until it was the middle of the night when Mrs. Puff said to be at boating school. I told Patrick to be ready at the spot on the hill, and we went our separate ways. I was terrified out of my mind when I met with Mrs. Puff. She looked even more deranged and psychotic than ever. Even worse, when I tried to radio Patrick that we were about to start the test, I didn't get a response. I kept trying to check in with him without Mrs. Puff noticing, but he had gone radio silent. Something was wrong, but there was no way for me to know, and now I had to do the test on my own without help. We started off going down the course like we had done a million times. Mrs. Puff was breathing down my neck, watching me like a hawk, just waiting for me to make the tiniest mistake so she could end the test. I was sweating bullets, trying to be as careful as possible. I made sure I didn't miss a single turn, cross a single line, or fail to signal or do anything else wrong. The finish line was so close, but then Mrs. Puff told me to stop and said she was taking the test into her own hands. Mrs. Puff, is this part of the test?
Why, yes, SpongeBob. I did say this was a special test, didn't I?
Well, yeah, but what does that mean exactly?
Let's go on a little cruise around Bikini Bottom.
But
Just drive before I blow something up. I'm not talking about myself.
I could sure use some stress relief. Suddenly, I was going 80 miles an hour. No matter how fast I went, Mrs. Puff kept telling me to go faster. She was forcing me to pass on the wrong side of the road, weave through traffic, and take turns like a madman. It was the most insane test of my life. We even went through rock bottom. At times, I was sure I was gonna crash, and I didn't want to keep going, but I had no choice but to be her Uber. We drove for hours. Then finally, we ended up back at school. I was in shock. I hadn't crashed. At last, I passed, and I was going to get my driver's license. I started to celebrate, but then Mrs. Puff tore me down all over again.
Great job, SpongeBob. You did everything so perfect.
I did. I can't wait to tell Gary and Squidward and Mr. Krabs.
Let me reward you with your new driver's license. How about you grab it for me in the trunk?
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Puff. I'm so excited. Oh, dear Neptune, no! Mrs. Puff, please! I'll do it right next time. I won't cheat, I swear!
This happened a few years ago on Mother's Day, and it still haunts me till this day. I used to live with my mom, who was a hard-working woman. She used to cook, clean, and take care of me and my siblings while working a part-time job. When I eventually got older and had a wife and kids of my own, I moved out in a small bungalow house. I didn't want to leave her to fend for herself, so I ended up taking her in. My wife was a bit hesitant at first, but eventually gave in to the idea since the kids really liked her company. So, when it was eventually Mother's Day, I of course wanted to celebrate not only my wife, but my mother as well. We invited our cousins, aunts, uncles, nephews, nieces, basically the entire family. It was a perfect day, honestly. The kids were outside playing in the front lawn while myself and the other relatives did grown-up stuff. It was around the evening time when I got up to grab another beer from the fridge. That's when I noticed an unfamiliar car parked on the street in front of my house. It was a dark sedan with tinted windows, just sitting there idling. I then went out to the porch and saw the kids playing on the lawn and my mom at the edge of the yard, facing the car. I remember hearing her saying something like,
"What do you want? Get the hell out of here!"
The car didn't move, it just parked there. She then shouted again saying,
"If you don't get out of here, I'm calling the cops! You got that?"
My mother was a very confrontational person and didn't take shit from anyone. and would call out anyone on anything if she thought they were in the wrong. That's just how she was. But something about yelling at a random vehicle was alarming as hell. I didn't want her causing any unnecessary drama and printing a target on our house. So I called out to her saying,
"Mom, just ignore them and come inside."
She ignored me and continued mean-mugging the vehicle. I figured it had to either be some Karen neighbors down the street that were trying to file a noise complaint, or just a group of teen troublemakers looking to get a kick out of bothering an elderly lady. I tried to make out who was inside the car, but it was hard to see as the windows were tinted and it was getting a bit late. I called out to my mom once more to get inside, and that the other adults were waiting on her. Once again, she ignored me and continued to have a stare down with the vehicle. I was getting nervous as hell, and got a bit closer so I could see the plate number, just in case whoever was in the car tried to pull something. As I squinted my eyes to look at the front plates, I realized that it was either removed or being covered. That's when I knew something was horribly wrong. A million red flags raced through my mind. I started freaking out and yelled at my mom and the kids to immediately get back in the house. The kids immediately started scrambling inside while my mom stood in the same spot, yelling at the car and telling them she was going to call the cops. I then started walking towards her just so I could pull her back into the house and away from the vehicle. That's when the car suddenly rolled down their windows, revealing 2 or 3 men wearing ski masks. The one closest to the window then pulled out a firearm and started waving it around.
Happy Mother's Day, you old fart! Today's gonna be your lucky day!
He then smiled at me and my mom, and that's when I yelled saying,
"Mom, get inside!"
as I started running back towards the house. And as I made it to the porch, all I could hear was a loud bang sound. All I could remember was ducking for cover, as my relatives inside the house started screaming in despair and confusion, not knowing what the hell was going on. The car then immediately drifted off. I then got up and slowly turned my back to see where my mom was, and there she was, laying lifelessly on the lawn. She was still, eerily still. I then ran to her screaming,
"Mom! Mom! Mom!"
over and over again, but there was no response. I took off my shirt and used it to cover her wound as my relatives called the cops. An ambulance with a few cruisers showed up, taking her to the hospital, but it was too late. She was gone. The police went searching for the suspects, but unfortunately, they were unable to be found. There wasn't much evidence that my family and I could provide to the police. We had no camera footage, no license plate, nothing other than just some males wearing ski masks. After providing police with our testimonies, they concluded that the whole thing was just a senseless, motiveless crime, just really some sickos in a car. The next few months after that tragic Mother's Day weekend was a blur. I couldn't sleep or eat. I was just numb. The house felt empty, and the kids were understandably quiet and scared. None of us wanted to step out of the house and deal with the fact that we might see those guys again. A few years after the incident, my family and I moved out, but we couldn't deal with the fact that those guys could still show up anytime, whether it was a birthday, holiday, or Mother's Day again, and possibly target us for no apparent reason. This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding an Alabama grandmother who was celebrating Mother's Day with her family when someone opened fire on the outdoor party just after 7 p.m. on Sunday, May 12th. Gloria Cruz, 64, was fatally struck as she reportedly rushed children playing outside back into her house for safety. She collapsed on her lawn. Cruz unfortunately did not make it at the scene. Police are offering a $1,000 cash reward to anyone who may have seen something or knows something, and to come forward with any information related to the suspect. Cruz's daughter has set up a GoFundMe to set up for funeral expenses. No arrests have since been made, according to police who say the case is still under investigation.
I've been a boating instructor for nearly 20 years. Everyone in Bikini Bottom who's gotten their license in the last 2 decades knows me as Mrs. Puff. It's not glamorous, but at least I know I've created a memorable image of myself in this town's eyes. However, after thousands of tests I've given, I hardly remember any of the faces I see. They all just stare blankly at me in the classroom, then they rotate in and out of the driver's seat of the old testing boat. That's why it's extra special when someone sticks out. My most recent memorable encounter was with the handsome fellow named Clyde. He was last on the docket for testing that day and twice as old as the rest of the students. When we finished the test, I told him he passed. He didn't get out of the boat. He stayed and started making eyes at me. Clyde told me that I was the only reason he even bothered to get his license. He knew taking a class was a guaranteed way to get close to me. Now, with the course over, it was time for him to buck up. Eventually, I caved. I let him drive us to my house while I relaxed and listened to him say all the wonderful things he thought about me. When we arrived, I told him to take a seat on the couch and get comfortable. I'd had a long day and needed an equally long bath to decompress and freshen up. I wanted to see if Clyde could be trusted to be left alone in my house unattended, or if he would ultimately fail the most important test for being with me.
I'd been dreaming of being in Mrs. Puff's house for months, about how it would look and smell, and now finally, I was in it. Even better, just one room away, she was undressing and dipping into a warm, steamy bath. I wanted to join her more than anything, but I held myself back from going that far too quickly. I could barely contain myself, though. I got up and started walking around, just looking at stuff, not touching anything. Not at first, anyway. I eventually found myself in her kitchen, staring at an empty glass by the sink. Mrs. Puff must have drank from it that morning, leaving a perfect lipstick stain on the rim. The compulsion to pick it up and kiss the mark of where her lips had been was overpowering, and once I succumbed to that, the floodgates were open. Next thing I knew, I was sneaking into her bedroom and opening her dresser. I found her panty drawer and buried my face in it, taking in the sweet aroma. I was getting nosier and started digging through her closet. Mrs. Puff had a filing cabinet in her closet. I decided to check it out. I had no idea how big a mistake I was making. I opened the first drawer and saw all these files of people's names, including Mrs. Puff's own name. The next drawer was full of dates, all from different events in her life. The farther back I went, the more I discovered Mrs. Puff was not who she said she was. In her earlier life, she went by a different name and led a very different life. The sweet woman I knew was nothing more than a facade concealing a deranged criminal. She was arrested and hunted by police for committing horrible crimes. She had all these photos and newspaper clippings to commemorate the people she robbed and took out. I was shitting bricks, realizing I had fallen in love with a lie. I had to get the hell out of there. I tried to quietly close the cabinet and escape, but by then, it was too late. Mrs. Puff was standing right behind me. She was dripping wet, wearing just a towel. She asked me what I was doing, and I tried to play it off. I offered to go home, but she said I needed to stay and go through with our date. She had gotten herself ready for me, and her bed was waiting for us. I knew I didn't have a choice. She stripped me of all my clothes and we went into the sheets together. She was on top of me, just like I had always dreamed of, but I couldn't stop thinking about how she was a dangerous criminal. She kept reaching for my throat, and I kept pushing her away because I just couldn't trust her. Then, out of nowhere, she started strangling me. I managed to break free and roll off the bed, but Mrs. Puff wasn't about to let me go. I thought just maybe none of this stuff about her past really mattered. Get away from me!
Oh, come on, Clyde. Come back. I was just trying to be freaky.
Stay away from me! I just want to go home, okay?
You want to know why they call me Mrs. Puff?
No. Why? No!
You should have minded your own business, Clyde.